In these times of uncertainty, it's all the more important that we keep collaborating, informing, and inspiring each other, so that we can be smarter and better tomorrow. Welcome to the Pak uit de Zwijger LIVECAST.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Munslag, and thank you for tuning in on Infected Cities. This is a serial program created by Pak uit de Zwijger in collaboration with DutchCulture. And during this series, we will zoom in on different cities in Europe. Because we cannot travel in all this craziness going on in the world, we would still like to know how everybody is dealing and doing with the pandemic going on. Today, we are zooming in on Athens in Greece. And Athens has about 5 million residents. I heard in Athens. And in Greece, there are about 126,000 confirmed cases of corona. That is a lot of people. That is a lot of creatives. That is a lot of all kinds of people together in a situation where we would like to know, okay, how is everybody dealing with it? Pak uit de Zwijger and DutchCulture make sure to connect a lot of city makers that can be creatives, journalists, musicians, to see how they are doing. And today they are tuning in with me via Zoom, but I have a sidekick with me here in the studio. And I'm very happy that you are here with me in the studio. His name is Thomas Huisman. Thomas, you are a, I can say artist for the eye and ear because you're a musician, but also a photographer.
Yeah.
And you have very, very, very much love for Greece, but also for the Netherlands. And that's why you're like in both cities. And that's why you're my sidekick today.
Yeah. Very happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. How have you been doing and how are you doing in this time?
Yeah, for me personally, it's a bit of a weird time, of course, as a concert photographer and a musician, and concerts being cancelled all over the place. So yeah. It's kind of not happening anything.
Mm-hmm.
And also personally, it's been a bit of a difficult year since I lost my mom in spring. So yeah, it's a weird year.
It's a weird. It asks a lot of rethinking, a lot of
and looking at yourself, your own position, where you're going.
Yes, indeed, where you're going.
So a philosophical year, maybe.
Indeed, I think so. I think so very much. And a lot of us still have to accept the fact that that is. Yeah. And I think if you accept that a little bit, it'll help. I don't know.
It's easier to cope. Yeah.
It's easier to cope with, indeed. Because, we can say that Greece has been having a very tough decade.
Yes.
Economical crisis, the refugee crisis, and then the pandemic hits the world. And that's like... you're already working with a group that is very vulnerable because right now the first two speakers that will be joining us in conversation work with the group that is already vulnerable people. And I can't even imagine what it is like to deal with and yourself as a person during Corona, but also with people who are already in a difficult situation and then still have to keep each other motivated, positive, also dealing with reality. Luckily, Philippa is here on Zoom with me. Philippa Dimitriadi, sorry. You are a journalist, DJ, you work, you do a lot with refugees and in a creative way, I think, also dealing with the situation. And also we have Lefteris Papagiannakis. Yes.
Hi.
Head of Advocacy at Solidarity Now. Thank you both for being here. And as my first two via Zoom joining us, can you please shed some light on what is happening over there with you right now? The social and economic consequences of the whole pandemic on Athens. Big question maybe for a quick answer, but if you can give us a little insight.
Who would you...
Oh, yes, like Philippa, if you would start, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Philippa Dimitriadi. Right now, among other work, I work as an assistant coordinator of a wonderful program. It is called Migratory Birds. It consists of the Young Journalists team, which is a team of young and teenage refugees, migrants, and Greeks that produce and publish the newspaper. And this whole project is conducted by the NGO called Network for Children's Rights. So during the pandemic, we faced many challenges on professional and on personal level. And the situation here in Greece actually on social level is pretty polarized, I would say, because I think the society was pretty, actually the pandemic and the coronavirus brought onto the surface the differences, the ideological differences of the society. And I think this is going to take its toll once more on us, because we have experienced already a polarization during, as you may can remember, the economical crisis during 2015, during the border controls, during all these things. So once more, we find ourselves, reevaluating our personal relationships, even our position into the society, thinking about our last vote, maybe.
Yeah. And for you, Lefteris, can you?
Yeah, Greece came out, as you said, from a 10-year financial crisis, and just when things were beginning to pick up, and these are, this is an estimation, we cannot confirm it by numbers or by the social and economical reality, but we were just getting our heads out of the water.
Yeah.
The pandemic, which is a global phenomenon, of course, came and hit very hard. The polarization is one big issue because polarization existed before, but signs of the habit of having a polarized society in Greece is very common. I mean, it is an easy solution. Instead of discussing, we are polarizing ourselves, even between friends, and it's very difficult to cope with it. So polarization is one of the big difficulties that we are facing. Of course, the financial data and the economic situation in the real economic situation is very problematic. I think that we are going to see the full effect after next summer, because it's going to be very crucial. This summer was very difficult for all of us. And I believe that if next summer is in the same context, then we will see the real toll of this pandemic onto the Greek society. For the moment, we are hanging by a thread, if you want. Many things are in the balance. But I believe that the real difficulty will be revealed after next summer.
Wow. And because that is a lot of hit after hit after hit. How do you keep yourself motivated in these times to, because you got to find the little light bulb, right? To keep you going and to also inspire others so we can keep each other up, or else everything will be heavy on the shoulders, even though that is reality. Lefteris says Philippa got to handle this.
No, I mean, so let me continue as I started before. I think that trying to put something in the work and giving back to the people who helped you with your work is very important. It's not just work, but it's not only just sentiment. You have to find a fine balance between these two realities.
Yeah.
Of course, when you do political work, it's much more complicated because political considerations have a tendency to be more impersonal and less sentimental, if you want. But in reality, you need to find an internal strength in order to support and defend your opinion and your views. It's not always very easy, especially now. where the space for discussion is very, very limited, especially when you talk about vulnerable groups, mainly migrants and refugees. The policy of the new government is very toxic towards migrants and refugees. It's even more polarized than the ideological fight that we have between us, as Philippa mentioned. Migrants and refugees, as you know, all over Europe, are in the center of all political discussions. Look at what's happening in elections and in many member states of the EU. I can mention also Holland in this context, but it's an issue that is affecting political views, elections, realities, and the pandemic is adding to that. First, migrants were targeted as a danger, bringing the pandemic with them. That didn't work. Now in Greece, we are blaming them to be a danger to national security because of the events in March in the land border in Evros, but also a danger to citizens' protection because migrants and refugees, as you know, are dangerous in general. And if you see, and I will stop with this, the new layout of the coordination of the presidency of the government, as we say, the new General Secretariat, there is a sector in there called National Defense, Citizens Protection and Migration. That gives an outline of how the government is going to deal with migration in the years to come. So a threat to national security and a danger to citizens. It's not unique. I mean, look at what the European Commission has done. Our European way of life, their European way of life. So, and we see that in many other countries. So I think that this is also something very problematic.
Thomas, I would like to see, because you're hearing all of this, and I see you nodding and agree because you recognize what is being said here.
The new government in Greece that came into place, I think last year, just before the summer.
July.
July, is definitely more conservative, and there are some people in that government that have a big role in the media as well that are very right-wing, and I think 20 years ago we would call them far-right and extreme right.
Yeah.
So, I definitely recognize what Lefteris is saying about the migrants being the first...
targeted that.
The first target to beat on in case of an emergency.
And Philippa, because hearing all of this indeed, and you working with lots of people that are targeted right now, how do you, find tools, or how do you cope with all the challenges facing you right now?
First of all, let me say that I have the chance to work with teenagers, no matter where they come from, no matter what their background is, they are teenagers.
Yeah.
So,
that's
they have this unique, drive for life and all this joy. They cannot take it away from them.
No.
So this kind of gives you the motivation and the strength you need to proceed and find creative ways and solutions. The obstacles, although we had to face during this time, were tremendous. We have been and we are still doing the impossible to produce our issues, to produce articles, to get in touch with them. Many members of the Young Journalist team were in quarantine for weeks. When we weren't at a general lockdown, between the 6 months that we haven't a lockdown here in Greece as we do now and as we do there in the Netherlands, many of the camps were in quarantine because they found positive COVID-19 cases, and they were in a situation where they couldn't go out, they couldn't get in, they didn't know what was going on. The inside info we had from our members was that there was no, they didn't tell them actually when they're going to be able to go out again. And of course, as you can understand, not every refugee child or refugee teenager or migrant has access to internet or the required equipment. So we had to be very, very creative to keep this whole thing going on.
Because is that lockdown, that's the second lockdown, right? Since October, November, and if you want to go outside, you have to be able to send a text message stating a valid reason to go out. So if you are not able to do that, does that mean you are not allowed to go out at all?
No, you're not. Actually, there are written forms that you can also fill, but you have to have a printer.
So always you have to be able to have either internet, a printer. It's
a catch-22.
So you're excluding a lot of people that don't have that, that don't have access to that.
Yeah.
And the both of you are able to reach these people, or you are able to facilitate them with the need so they can indeed move, if that's a way to put it.
If I may continue, we managed to have a way to communicate with them. We do it through any possible chatting application. We use, Viber, WhatsApp. There you can see us through a Zoom editorial meeting. Back then, where there was no coronavirus, we used to have editorial meetings with the team twice a month to produce this thing. Let me show. This is our latest issue. So right now we are doing this through Zoom. Many of our members live in shelters or in camps, so they have access to internet. Not always the signal is good, or not always they have the privacy. I mean, almost never they have the privacy to join a meeting, but we managed to do it. But one of the biggest challenges we had is, to recruit new members, which is vital to the project for it to be continued, and also to remain in touch with the members that we already have. And we were in danger, to lose communication with them through these technical and practical obstacles.
Wow. Yeah, that idea. I mean, if I compare it to here, because I think here we have been running around pretty freely. Now there's a second one, and we're like, and you panic. But then sometimes, if it's not presented to you, or if you're not close to someone that is in a different situation, you will forget that that is also a part of the reality, and that is also a very big consequence of this pandemic happening.
Yeah, and some refugee camps. Well, I guess we all know the images from Lesbos, the island. They are so overcrowded that it's in this pandemic, of course, waiting to happen.
Yeah, of course.
An accident waiting to happen, and it's a time bomb basically until you get people with corona there, and then there's no way out for them. So that was happening during the summer, and I guess now again.
Yeah, and then you will have what Lefteris said again. Then some people can say, "See, they're a danger too." Then
of course, that's what they're waiting for, to take advantage of it politically.
Wow. I'm trying to find the because of course it's an update. It's an update about what's happening in reality, and I'm wondering to see how you both are coping with, but. I think this is a good one for me to put a little pin in it and say thank you, but please stick with us here and then go to a little intermezzo because indeed, as I stated before, sometimes you have to find your way around it as a creative or just as a human being to deal with what is happening in this pandemic. If you cannot execute your craft as you do normally, some people will get very creative with it. So also the next artist and also independent project curator, Theodora Malamu, is joining us right now. And you will shed a little bit of light of what you have done to cope with the pandemic hitting you and your work.
Exactly. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Theodora Malamu. I am an artist and I occasionally enjoy curating small independent art projects. Before I talk about my new project, I find it necessary, though, to make a short introduction about the area where I live. I was born and raised in central Athens, near Victoria Square. It is a part of the city center that is definitely not touristic, nor part of any sightseeing. My neighborhood has been on the news a lot over the last few years for a variety of reasons. It has been called a ghetto, has been related to criminality, and has been used as a temporary shelter by refugees coming to Greece. In the past, though, this area was strongly related to the upper and middle classes of the city. A stroll among the streets and alleys can prove it, as the architectural diversity reveals its long history. Neoclassical buildings from the early 1900s stand next to apartment blocks of the 70s and the 80s, and opposite beautiful examples of modernist interwar constructions. Over the last decades, the area went through a long period of neglect and abandonment and completely lost its sparkle. At the same time, many people from other countries came here and on some occasions formed strong communities, opened shops and restaurants, adding their own color to the neighborhood's identity. As you might have already noticed, one strong element that is common in both images that appeared so far is that of laundry hanging out to dry, or Bugatta, as we call it in Greek. I noticed it too, and so I decided to create a project inspired by it. And that's how Athens Laundry Bugatta occurred. It's a social media account on Facebook and Instagram where I present a photographic documentation focused on this particular subject. The project began in June, and since then, images like the ones you just saw are uploaded daily in order to provide a slightly surreal yet extremely accurate narrative of this area's present state. These impromptu installations of clothes and other private belongings carry plenty of information, not just about their owners, but also about the whole area's unique cultural, social, and economic mixture. An additional second part of the program began in October, and that's the art part. 9 contemporary artists who work with textile were invited to participate and have their artworks photographed while hanging, like some kind of alternative laundry, in buildings around the area. In the next photo, you can have the next photo, please. Thank you. Irini Bakhlidjanaki's impressive large-scale work titled Parasol is hanging on the 6th floor of a 70s apartment building. You can see in the background all the characteristic elements of the city's landscape, TV aerials, solar heaters, etc. One of the project's goals was to let the artworks interact with the surroundings. The other goal was to be visual pluralistic and include as much as possible of the area's architectural variety. For example, this embroidered work by Artu the Callas, titled In Last We Trust, is seen at the balcony of one of the most impressive buildings in the neighborhood. Built in the 1930s in neoclassical style, the building has been recently renovated and is nowadays used for tourist accommodation purposes, while the ground floor has turned into an Afghan restaurant, which is a rather characteristic combination in the area. Last but not least, a completely different image. Maria Varela's discreet and esoteric hand-woven textile called Data Altar was placed on one of my favorite locations, a small yet very well taken care of balcony on one of the dodgiest roads in the area. The colors of the artwork and the plants complement each other, while we catch a glimpse of the apartment interior with the curtains and the lamp on the ceiling. The street right in front of the balcony is a rather dirty and well-known spot for drug dealing. So I found the persistence of the people who live there, a lovely couple from Georgia, to keep their space clean and beautiful, extremely moving. The project was actually organized before the pandemic. However, as part of it coincided with the second lockdown in Athens, its dynamic changed. It was not anymore just about using social media in order to reach a wider audience, but also about offering to viewers the opportunity to take a photographic walk at the time when they were locked inside their homes. It was also about bringing people together, as it happened to me and all the neighbors I met during the photo shoots, about showing what this neglected urban zone looks like, and hopefully breaking a few stereotypes about it. So I would like to complete this presentation with a photo that's not technically great, but to me it encapsulates the meaning of love and affection. It's the image of my neighbor's balcony with their kids' princess costumes hanging on the clothesline, as a reminder that under difficult circumstances, little things can bring much needed magic in our lives. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm gonna give you a quick finger snap. Thank you, indeed. And thank you for, I love the way that indeed maybe it was an idea that wasn't born in the pandemic, but that it did make a switch, you know, in the pandemic and still kept going so that indeed I could have a walk outside, even though not going outside. And the ending perfect picture, that was really good because I already saw it and I right away realized indeed kids and their world and the small things that will matter indeed, those princess dresses hanging over there. Looking at this, Thomas, what does this do for you as you hear and see this like this?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting to look in another way to a neighborhood like Theodora said that has a bad name nowadays in Greece. The main square was so frequent attack of the recently courted neo-Nazi party. So it was a neighborhood that was kind of in the media was turned into a war zone between the Greeks and the immigrants, and it's nice to see.
Like this is also
the real side, maybe.
Yeah, especially if you live there, you know, it's very hard, I think, to hear constantly your surroundings and where you live and where you know there are all kinds of people that they will portray only one side of the story. Yeah,
it's very one-sided, of course. And the question is how true that image that they are portraying is. Yeah. And I think these kind of images are much closer to the real situation there.
Indeed. So thank you again, Theodora, for these lovely presentations and the images. Yes, we will follow on the gram. Thank you. And from that intermezzo, we're going to go to the cultural sector and the creatives because during the second complete lockdown, of course, restaurants, schools, the whole shebang, theaters, everything is closed. And if correct, till the 7th of January 2021. And the cultural sector has suffered enormously. I have the next speakers on Zoom with me who will give us an insight on how they are dealing with, coping with, and how everything is going. I have visual artist Angeliki Duferi.
Hello.
Yes, I see big smiles, so that went well. I also have George Sayinish. George, I'm struggling with your name. Sayinish, because I know it was a little J.
Shahinis.
Oh, Shahinis. I have it. George Shahinis, co-founder of Urban Dig Project. And Martina Magu. Yeah, Martina Magu. Don't be difficult, Jen. Cultural manager and researcher. Thank you for joining us in the Zoom. And we're in the second lockdown right now. We also here in the Netherlands are in the second lockdown. But can you first give us a little insight how the first one was for you as a maker, as an artist, as a creative in the culture?
Well, I could start if you like.
Yes, please.
Well, the first one, I could say, was totally different than the second one, apparently. Because back then I didn't have any obligations, work obligations or family ones. So I had all the time to concentrate on what was happening and what that meant to me and figure out how what I wanted to do with this time creatively, which I did. Shall I go on, or maybe others want to?
I thought you were going to continue, but no, because indeed you had that time. Because what in that time and comparing it to now, because you say obviously it is different. How were you coping in the second one?
Well, the second one, I'm super busy. So on one hand, one might say that that's good, because I have not a lot of time to contemplate on this really negative situation that we're experiencing. But for me, I think there's also, it's kind of bad because I haven't had time to grieve. I think because we really have lost a lot of a big part of our lives and socializing. It's a loss. You need to grieve. You need to take the time and feel sad. So for me, I know it may sound weird, but I haven't had time to do that during the second lockdown.
I think it makes absolute sense that you say that, because it is indeed, you have to, everybody has to adjust to a very different situation. And some are very capable to go on fast switch, think around and do something else. And others you have to, indeed, if you work, for instance, I'm going to go to you, George. You do a lot of community work, theater work with the community, and all of a sudden locked down. So how's it going for you? How are you dealing with it all?
Sure. I can show you a couple of slides that I've prepared.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. So the first thing that happened to us is that we had a bombardment of all these digital tools that we now use in order to go into working with our community and with the art world. So this was an issue for us. How are we dealing with that? And you can see in this slide, we started many little things trying to see really how to turn this new medium for us into something that is more humane for us, more inclusive and more imaginative, because it was an issue for us to have these three characteristics. And then, if we can put the second slide, what happened is that, especially during the second lockdown, we started thinking that some things might not change. Some things might, are definitely signals of what's happening in the world now. So this makes you think about not only how to deal with the local problem, but it really changes the way you think about your projects. And this little slide shows that we have turned as a team towards thinking about the urban environment, thinking about the role of the communities with respect to the environment, and the role of the art with respect to a more sustainable way of living in the city. And these are things that we had always in mind, but now they become more prominent as a goal for us, as a vision. Just really quick, I can show you how it was before and how it is now, if we move to the next slide. So,
is this a before or is this a now?
This is the before, right? This is our performances that were, this is a one-to-one interactive performance before, and then on the next slide, you see a version of it online. This is a shock, and we're using teleconference. But this way, it was helpful for us because we tried to find new ways of doing art. It brings some innovation, at least in our mind. Next slide shows a community work that is out on the street, public space, accessible to all. And then on the next slide, that you see that we do one-to-one teleconference work, discussing about communities and arranging things like that, less inclusive, but at the same time you have an easier customized interaction. So what I mean by that is that you can go into, using teleconference, you can go into more customized work with the community. Ask what people, see what people lack in skills or what you lack in skills, and you can share with them and go into more personal interaction quicker, because one-to-one interaction, if you don't have the digital media, takes sometimes a lot more effort.
Absolutely.
But of course, and if we move on the next one then, you are lacking the physical presence, which is absolutely important. See, here you see, we are making songs out of oral history, and we are delivering these songs to the people who have said, given the testimonies, and people dance with their own stories. Now, if you move to the next slide, now we are making a platform, and this is the visual of the platform, where people are uploading their stories and uploading the songs, and it becomes so cold, but at the same time it creates a lot more reach. So, but the question again here is inclusion. Who can access this website? How can you? So if we move to the next one and the final one. So we see somebody here doing parkour on the city. And then if we move to the next one, that was how it used to be. And now we're talking about the city using Lego in teleconference. And this takes you, there's a challenge there that you are losing your touch with the actual ground.
Absolutely.
That you become too theoretical, you speak too much about strategy, too much about, and then you lose what's happening in real life and with people who are not in your circle, and because they don't know how to use digital media and all this. So for me, what seems to work in our work is to do more synergies. So, we are a cultural group, but we like to work a lot more now than what we used to, with many different other experts and many other different groups who can bring the many different realities that exist, and that there is an absolute threat that we might miss these realities now that we are all in our own cells. So I think it's time for even more synergies and more extrovert, approach, and always thinking for us about the issues about inclusion and about what am I missing in my little cell and in my little box in the screen.
No, thank you so much for this insight. I like it. I saw Thomas also getting into it, and indeed these realities. But because I have Martina, and if correct, you have a small video of how a part of the cultural sector reacted to the pandemic, or responded to the pandemic.
Maybe before that, just to give a small introduction of a bit who I am and why I'm here.
Yes.
So the last 20 years, I've been living in and out of Athens and of Greece, and always have been experiencing this with a certain degree of nostalgia. Mm-hmm. The pandemic found me in France, actually. So I was not in Athens. We had just recently moved to France. But however, this time it was a bit different, because it was the first time that the geography in which I was located did not make much difference, because it was mainly my communities of practice that actually defined my sense of place and of belonging. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely still very much Athens rooted. During the pandemic, I worked with George and with the Urban Dig project on conceiving a number of projects. And with a number of colleagues that we worked together at the municipality of Athens until 2019, we set up a new structure, a Collectiva for Culture and Social Innovation. And I also, during this time, during the first lockdown, I evaluated a cultural program that was funded by different foundations, Greek and German foundations in Greece, supporting young and aspiring cultural managers to kickstart their own initiatives that would generate positive social impact to their local environment. So that was a very interesting experience, because this project actually was at its end after 5 years. It was a project that started after the first crisis that you very well described before, and it was ending with another crisis. And it was very interesting to discuss with all those young and aspiring cultural managers and workers to understand, like, how do they see and how do they experience their future, their the power of arts and culture for social change. And yes, so coming a bit to your question, I myself, I'm a researcher and a cultural manager as well. So what I will tell you, it's mainly part of an observation when it comes to how the sector actually responded to this situation. For me, it has been a unique reaction. And I think this is the first time that we see such a mobilization. If you want, you can play the video now, because I want to make a specific reference to a movement that was born during this first lockdown. It was called Support Art Workers. It was an initiative that today counts even more than 25,000 cultural workers. And I think that there are some interesting points here. I mean, this is a movement, and it's a movement representing different disciplines. It's not coming from a union perspective, not a sectoral based, but it represents the sector as a whole. Another interesting element is that it's a bottom-up initiative. I mean, it's organized in a horizontal way, representing the needs of various artists and various cultural workers, that they organize themselves into working groups and trying to see how they can continue with this. And I think that the other element, and maybe our colleagues that are themselves artists can say this, I think that this is a movement that is kind of here to stay in a way, because I mean, it has managed to articulate in a way the needs of the sector in a way that perhaps public cultural policies have not been able to do in the past years. I mean, as a co-author of the compendium dossier on Greece, on cultural policies and practices, which has been, the latest version is in 2013, I can tell you that there is a difficulty to identify, I mean, the real cultural policy in Greece. I mean, it is very much rooted on heritage, and it lacks a bit of forward thinking and sustainable thinking on contemporary, let's say, arts. So yes, I think that it has been an interesting evolution. And I think that it also shows a bit the way, I mean, how this dialogue between public authorities, public institutions should happen with the people that actually know their own needs and need to articulate their own needs to be taken into consideration for policies, programs, and structures.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Angeliki, I would like to know, you as the expert, as the visual artist, how do you react to it? And maybe you also have a visual of what you have been working on.
Yes. Where should I start? Well, I have to say, I took my time. I was already working on a piece, so it's not like I didn't have what to do. So I gave myself time to reflect on what was happening and digest the situation. And I thought, okay, I'm bound to my house. I cannot go out. I cannot go to my printing lab because, you know, as a visual artist, maybe the first part of the process is very private. Then it comes a time where you have to work with other people as well. So I thought I have to make the most of it and really use whatever I have available in the house. And that ended up meaning some sort of weird piece of fabric that was narrow and very long, about 4.5 meters long.
Oh yeah,
as you can see here, yes, and about 65 centimeters wide. And whatever threads were left over since even, I don't know, the 80s that my mother would have used on different projects, or later on my own projects, crafting projects, not art projects. And this, I mean, the positive, besides the actual work, the positive thing was that it was a process that empowered me exactly because I realized as a creative person that as long as I have something to communicate through my art, through my practice, I can find a way to do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it may mean that the work may look different. It may be of a different medium or whatever, but I will be able to make work. So for me, the question was not anymore of how to produce artwork, but at a later stage, how is that communicated?
Yeah,
and that I think is a big issue. And if it's only online, I mean, how many layers of detachment can we have from the actual work, which has a very particular physicality, and we normally you would experience from up close. And so how far away mentally can you get and still get the feeling of what is trying to convey?
And this, because is this work now done, or will you continue writing, sewing?
Well, it took me much longer than the first lockdown, I have to say.
Okay.
It took me about 4 months, and one of the interesting things of the process was the difference of my experience of creating it during the lockdown, where everything had slowed down. Mm-hmm. And then when the lockdown was over and life, let's say, went back to normal, so everything around me started being fast again. I had to go to work and I had to take care of things. And that really makes you think about the relationship between space restriction and the perception of time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Hey, Thomas, we've been sitting here. Sorry, I'm going to try to see if I can get you into this, because I also hear a lot of, indeed, it used to be like this, and we were able to transform it to this. You said yourself, indeed, there are no concerts, so you cannot make pictures of. Yeah. A concert. Were you able to switch to something else, or are you now taking your time to get inspiration from this and have a message to take home with you, maybe even?
Well, maybe I'm more in that second category, that I'm now kind of refocusing. But I think that the movement that was shown by the support art workers movement is an interesting and positive development in this case, because in general during this whole period of individualization we kind of lost the feeling of power of the number. Yeah. And of people's movement, and what in relation to the Netherlands, what I like about Greece is that Greeks are a bit more rebellious, and they are more eager or quicker eager to take the streets to defend their message. And I think this movement is one of the positive developments in that way, because it united art workers, like was said, of all the different categories, musicians, actors.
All of them, not separate, but
it was not one group, because
the whole sector.
That is something that also is a thing in Greece, that every group has their own union that represents them, and it's very bureaucratic. Okay. Yeah. So it's good to see this movement kind of cross all those borders and get to the point of the issue. Indeed. And bringing that across. So
that's great. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you all, indeed, for this insight and showing, indeed, that little light bulb I was looking for, because, indeed, in this reality of how are we coping with and what are we going to do, we also need to hear this and process that and see that everyone has their own, also their own time to take within this and find within this. But then when you are able to stand as a whole, it is together, it's important to do so. We have come to the end of this episode. But thank you so much for being here with me in the studio as my sidekick, Thomas.
Thank you for having
and
me.
all the speakers on Zoom, thank you so much for giving us an insight. Please stay safe, first of all, but also keep creating and keep communicating the way you do. And hopefully, because the good thing about it is the internet, if we have it, we can stay in touch with each other and see and keep inspiring. So thank you so much for all that great work. To the people who have been watching at home, thank you so much for joining in. We are going to close off, but not with me. No, we have a special performance because that light, we need that, the inspiration, the creatives, the ones that are needed. So before I send off with a beautiful, beautiful artists that are here in the studio with us also, the next episode will be in the next year on the 14th of February, and we're going to Warsaw. I will not be doing that. My colleague Jorgos will be doing that, and that will be very interesting. So make sure you tune in on the 14th of January when we are going to check in with Warsaw and how it's going over there. But for now, I would like to please give all your attention and love to the music from Sofia Spinula and Dimitra. Is it also the weer? Chamainta? Is it weer die CH?
It's
Gaimanta. Gaimanta. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your warm welcome. Hi guys, also from us. We're Sofia Spinula, Dimitra Gaimanta. Today we're going to play a song for you from an Athenian also componist, composer, called Αυτή η νύχτα μένει, which means literally this night will stay. And we chose this song, basically it has a lot of interpretations, the lyrics, but we chose this song as to talk about or reflect the pain of the migration, of the nostalgia, as a lot of people before said. So we hope you like it. Thank you. Dank u wel.
That was amazing. That was amazing.